welcome back. So what we are going to do in this video is we are going to redo our fall tumbler, the Peekaboo wood grain fall tumbler, like the longest title that I've ever put on here. But anyways, we're going to do a fall tumbler 2.0. So what I am going to do in this video is show you all of the steps that I did not show in the first one. Now I am going to do a quick version of the wood grain, and I'm just mixing up the colors here. I'll have all those colors listed below, but I'm going to show you kind of how I do the wood grain pretty quickly here, but I am definitely going to direct you to go to that first video I did. I really go into a lot of depth on how I do the wood grain and what I use for it, and I actually started using this brush and then I forgot because it's been like a year since I made them, and so I was like, oh, this isn't the brush I normally use. It's the little small brush that I have next to me, but I thought I had based it with that one and then gone in with the little one. But anyways, I go into so much more detail on the wood grain, but honestly, the wood grain can be your own version of wood grain. It can be however you think a tree looks to you. I do some of these little pulling of the alcohol ink, pulling it down so that I can make kind of like knots in the tree. Well, I do that for this one more than I do for something else, because this is where in a tree branch, tree trunk, you would have those types of looks in a wood grain. So this is where I am going to try to achieve that look more than I would if I was doing something like a cut piece of wood or something like that. It would look a little bit different. But I am just going over really quickly this wood grain because this is basically what I do. I cover the whole cup in the wood grain, if you have not seen the first one, but I cover the whole cup in a wood grain. Now, the reason I do the whole cup is because when you start doing all of the wood grain, all the little things that I'm doing here, all the little pulling and the pushing and the pulling and the pushing of the alcohol ink to make those little knots and things like that, is you just don't know where you're going to get the best look. And so I just do the whole cup and just get some practice all the way around. And then when I'm done and I think I have got some good spots, I put a coat of epoxy and then I go in with my cut out of the tree, and I have different options at that moment to kind of say, okay, the tree trunk will look cool here, the little branches will look cool coming onto this and that. So I just kind of have fun and do a bunch of different little knots and pulls and pushes and pulls. Anyways, I've already said that. But the first video that I did of this, the first fall tumbler, was really, really well. I really explained it well, and I explained it while I was doing it, so it made a lot more sense. So I just encourage you to go and watch it, and then you can come back and start off where I did not take you on the appropriate ride for this tumbler the first time. But we are also going to be using some Glitter Ranch glitters, and there's a whole bundle on the website available for you to just purchase and be done and ready to go and make these tumblers. Anyways, let's go to the next step. So here we are with our cutout of the tree. This tree is available in my Facebook group under the YouTube video file or media folder. And so I just use removable vinyl because it's the easiest to get on and off. I'm a big proponent of removable vinyl or stencil vinyl, whatever you have on hand. If you have permanent, it's perfectly fine. You can use it. Having some removable vinyl just really helps out a lot. But anyways, like I said, there is a coat of epoxy on this tumbler. I just do the alcohol ink. I do not seal it. I do not spray it. I do not do anything to it. I do the wood grain. I put it on the turner. I usually try to wait like an hour, but I've done it as quickly as 30 minutes after I've done it. But sometimes I'll try to do it and then like leave it sitting just for a little while so that it can dry. But sometimes I am making so many of these from my Etsy shop that it's like, I just don't have time to wait and nothing ever happens. So I just put a coat of epoxy on there and be done. Now, I have only ever had it happen a couple of times where I've gotten like a bunch of fish eyes and I've had to kind of sand it and put another coat, but really try to avoid putting a second coat at this stage because it can get real thick and real heavy really fast. So just put one coat of epoxy. That's all you need. You just need that coat to cover this so that you can put the glitter and you can do the peekaboo and all of that. That's all you need at this point. So I'm just obviously removing the backing here, and I'm going to decide on the tumbler exactly where I have the best look, you know, so I'm going to kind of spin it around and decide like, okay, this is a good place for the trunk. This is a good place for all of the branches. And, you know, but that I may spin it around a few times, but I had already decided at that point. So I just left it sitting right there. I put this on. You can put this on any tumbler. Okay. I just happen to be using this one, but you can use this on a modern curve, on any one that you want, because you can just maneuver the tree. I have put it on the tumbler and then just kind of peeled up the branches and just kind of maneuvered them around the rounded surface of the modern curve, and or any one. I've done them on all of them, and I do them all the time. They're my best sellers. So trust me, it can be done. You just have to kind of like pick them up with your little weeding tool and kind of maneuver them around the curves, but it works out perfectly fine. So this is the bundle that I created for from the Glitter Ranch. Now this is Bubbly, Vacay, and Sage. Now Sage comes in a chunky and a fine. Now I am using the chunky in this instance because I'm using it for, if you will, the grass at the bottom of the tumbler. So I picked this sagey green because the grass just doesn't have the same kind of bright green color. As you're going into fall, it just starts to fade and kind of get brittle. And so that sagey green was just kind of like a transition into that next, you know, season of the year. This whole tumbler is just kind of like an experience of fall. It's like a whole moment of fall, and I'll explain a little bit more when I get into putting the leaves on and stuff. Now what I'm doing here is just putting on epoxy. I'm just putting a very thin layer of epoxy, and I try to make sure that that there's no streaks or anything, because this glitter is very fine and it can show those streaks. So just be careful when you're doing that. We're going to start off with Sage at the bottom. This is well, I was going to start off with the wrong one. I was like, oh, because this literally had been like the first time I'd done one in a year. So I was like, oh yeah, wait, let me remember the steps. So anyways, I do the Sage at the bottom. Now I just fill the bottom edge up a little bit, and then I just kind of tilt the cup a little bit and just let a little bit sprinkle, like if the grass is kind of thicker and, you know, fuller or whatever, and you're going to be blending the vacay into this. So I just kind of add just a little bit, it just gives it a look at the bottom, and that's basically what I wanted it. So I just make a big pile of glitter at the bottom on the parchment paper there, and then I just stick the bottom right in there just to get it all covered. And then I just go back just to make sure that I've got all the little spots, because you don't want any of that wood grain to show through, because it is really dark at this point. And, you know, I just try to make sure I'm covering it as good as possible, getting the best coverage I can. So now I'm going to go in with vacay. And this, I'm just going to pour it right into that part of that sage there, just to give it a good blend. I'm not looking for an ombre or anything like that. This is supposed to be the grass at this point, so just leave it like that. Just pour it over it and just let it blend by itself. Now what I was doing there was scratching a little bit of the vinyl there of the tree so that I could find it later after we cover this whole thing in glitter. It just gives me a little bit of something to find so I can pull that tree up. So here I'm just taking vacay about halfway up up the cup. I just tilt it a little bit and let it fall. I'm not really looking for a perfect ombre here because they blend so well together. You don't really have to do an ombre. And the whole point of it is the sky is kind of dulling as the ground is dulling, and everything is, you know, becoming different at this time of year, right? So anyways, and then the tree starts to shed these beautiful colors, and it's just, I don't know, the whole idea of it was like an experience. So I hope that comes across. But anyways, I take bubbly here, and it's just a beautiful champagne color, and I'm just dousing the top part of it. Just make sure you get it covered as much as possible at this point. I am dousing this in just covering it in this glitter, and then I'm just taking it right to that line of where the vacay is, and that's it. There's the ombre just kind of basically comes out itself. There's no other work to it. So this is when because I had scratched a little bit of the area of the where you could see the purple vinyl of that tree, and then I'm just taking my weeding tool here, and I'm doing this right after I get done with the glittering. That I literally let it sit long enough for me to pick up the glitters and clean up the glitter part, so I can keep the paper there, and then I can pull it off and let the glitter or the vinyl or pieces or whatever fall on that parchment paper, and then I'm done. So you see there, I'm just basically pulling up the whole tree. A lot of times I get the whole tree. Once I get that trunk, it just pulls up. I just pull the whole thing, and it just comes up beautifully if you do it like slowly enough. But this one was not doing that. But I also try and look at the tree itself, like a picture of the tree, before I go to seal this, just to make sure that I didn't forget any little branches anywhere, just to make sure that all the little pieces of branches that are coming off from each other branch have been removed. The vinyl has been removed, if that makes sense. So I just check just to make sure. I'm going to look at a picture just to check, but I've done so many of these at this point that I kind of know all the branches, but this was my first one in a year, so I was kind of like, okay, wait, is there one here? Is there one here? Yeah, okay, we're good. So I was kind of kept looking at it just to make sure. But and then that's it. Super simple as far as that goes. So then this, to be honest, I normally do a polyacrylic spray outside, but I wanted to show y'all that you can use polyacrylic if you have it, or if you have quick coat or whatever, but you are definitely going to want to seal this, because that green glitter at the bottom, it will travel and it will be going all over the place, and you just want it to seal as well on the tree, because you don't want a bunch of glitters going into that tree. Now, it is inevitable. It is going to happen even when you're doing this or you're spraying it or whatever. The glitter is going to get there, but you want to keep that tree as clean as possible. So this is why I am going to seal it with my polyacrylic. Now, first I'm going to go in with the top part and the bottom part, right there where the bottom part of the tree is, and then at the end there, I'm going to go in and do the green part, because I don't want those green pieces to come up into that other spot, into those other spots. So I was being really cool this day and was putting my arm completely in the front of this entire situation while I was epoxying this. So I'm showing the tail end of my epoxying, but you get the point. I have sealed it. I have waited a day, and I am going in and putting a coat of epoxy. Now, I have put a coat of epoxy from the top to the bottom. This is me doing the bottom. Now I'm going back up the top. I try to avoid doing too much after I get into that green, because I will get green pieces in there. Now, this, I am taking my heat gun, and I'm going to heat up the epoxy, or take your torch or whatever it is that you do before you go into this step. You don't want to be moving that around. You don't want to be blowing it, making it hot, and making the leaves kind of spread all over the place. So I try to, pop any bubbles or anything like that before I go into this step. Now, this is where I've seen a lot of people recreate this tumbler, and they never put leaves in the tree. Like, I put them all over the tree. Now here I am taking some of that sage and kind of filling in the bottom of that tree trunk just to give it a grass, like the grass is kind of grown up on the tree. Now here I am taking a bunch of leaves and I'm putting them at the bottom of the tree, and I'm going to put them on the sides of the tree, at the base of the tree, like if there's just big piles and piles of leaves that have come down. Now this whole thing is happening. The leaves are falling off of the tree. They're blowing in the wind. It's a whole experience. And I don't even care if one or two gets blown over to the back side here. If I accidentally get one that's over to the side or up the very top, it doesn't matter, because that's the whole idea, is that it is an experience. These do get pretty chunky and they kind of stick together and all of that. So I try to kind of pull them apart. Now, I'm not trying to like strategically place them anywhere. I don't really care where they land. All I'm doing at this point is just spreading them out, because they will be stuck on top of one another, and the little piles at the bottom, they get really, you know, and you'll have so many of them that you'll have to sand down and try to, you know, get enough epoxy on there to where it will cover it. So this is where I just spend a little bit of time cleaning it up and making sure that everything is kind of spread out. So this, I am taking a new glitter that she designed, that we got for this particular bundle here. And this is a 24 karat fine cut. It's not an ultra fine, it's a fine. Now she does have chunky and she does have fine holographic, but this is actually fine metallic. So it's pretty cool. But the reason that I put this on the top there, just at the very, I'm just sprinkling it from the top and kind of taking it halfway down. I just like the idea of having kind of like golden sunlight beams kind of coming down. I don't know. I kind of did it the first time because I had streaks in my epoxy because I didn't rub the epoxy down good enough, and when I did my glitter, I had streaks in the glitter, and so I was like, oh gosh, I've got to cover these up. So I took some gold and covered it up doing that. But then it became a thing, because then it just looked like golden sunlight was kind of dripping down on the tree and everything. So it became a thing, and now I do it every time. So, but the reason I did it in the beginning was because of one of the reasons I told you was don't do that, because you will get streaks in your glitter if you get streaks in your epoxy. So what I was doing there, cleaning with alcohol, always do that every time before you put on your whatever vinyl piece or whatever name or whatever you're putting on here. I use a black holographic chrome vinyl that I will put down in the description. I use it for this one because I have tried gold, I've tried copper, and all kinds of different colors, and they just blend in. They don't look right. So this black, it's a gray kind of gunmetal color with holographic. It just reads really well on there, and so I just go with it every time. So that's why I did it. But I kind of messed up the logo here. One of the little pieces of the letter got caught up underneath, and so I had to kind of do some finagling here. But this is for the Flynn Sisters exclusive group that I'm in. I designed, or she has a logo here, and we were doing a cup swap, and so I did this cup as a 2.0 for y'all to see more in-depth version of the fall tumbler that I did not do in the beginning, where I did not show y'all all of the little steps and everything. But anyways, I wanted to show y'all how I go about doing this. I had a little bit of trouble with the name there. It had some long little stringy little pieces of the letter, and they kind of got a little bit tangled, but I got it fixed. So at this point, just to be clear, I have 2 coats of epoxy after all of the leaves and the gold and all of that have been put on there. I put 2 coats of epoxy, and then I'm going to sand it down really, really good. And if I think I need to put another coat of epoxy before I go into this step, sometimes it happens. It just depends on the leaves and what happens. So sometimes it just does. But I did clean up the rim, cleaned up the edges, all of that, the same type of thing. But you want to make sure that you're putting at least 2 coats of epoxy after you put the leaves and the gold on there. I was using a clear sticker for my logo at the bottom, so I put that on the bottom clear so that we could see all the beautiful green glitter at the bottom, but you can definitely do whatever it is that you're going to do on the bottom of your cup. Then you seal it with Mod Podge and you put 1 or 2 final coats of epoxy depending, and there it is. That's your fall tumbler. This is my best seller on Etsy. When fall starts coming, I know they're coming in. So anyways, join my group and I will see you next time.